Let's bring our teachers to mind. Let's put ourselves into the place of being students. Studentship means humility. We're seeking knowledge, right? We're proud. We think we know everything. We don't feel like we need to use anybody else to tell us anything. But any type of studentship, even mundane, requires some sense that, okay, at least in this particular area of human knowledge, I don't know anything, or I don't know very much. So it's no different in the spiritual domain. So we put ourselves at the feet of our teachers as best we can, as humbly as we can. We pray for their blessings. What else? Dhimahi, the word Dhimahi, inspire, it's at the end of the Gayatri mantras, and a number of these mantras means it's Dhimahi, give me insight. Right, even Patanjali, Ishvara gives, he gives samadhi. To get samadhi, you have to have viveka, right? Samadhi siddhir, success in that. And all over the Gita, Krishna says, we were just looking at in class this afternoon, Tesham eva anukampartam aham agyana jam tamaha nasayami. I am the one who destroys the agyana, the avidya. Aham agyana jam, born from agyana jam. Aham agyana jam tamaha, the avidya. Avidya is a type of tamas. What else is it? There's only 3 gunas. Everything in yoga and sankhya, whatever you talk about, kleshas, avidya, it's all just some combination of the gunas. What else is it going to be? There's only Purusha and Prakriti. Ishwar, it's got to be Ishwar, is it? So hamagyana jam tamaha nashayami, atma bhavasto, jnana dipena, the light of knowledge. It's right there, like in Patanjali 228, right? The 8 limbs of yoga. What do? Ashudikshaye, jnana, what is it? Jnana dipa. Krishna, same language. I in the heart. Aham jnana jam tamaha nashayami, atma aham nashayami, jnana dipena, with the deeper of knowledge, jnana dipena. So we pray to Ishvara. We're going to pray to the mind. That same mind that has trapped us in samsara since beginningless birth. We're going to have faith in that. Good luck. Om jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshuruna militam yena tasmai shri gurave Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedānta Swamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari Sakanda Mandala Karam Yenavyaptam Characharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Shivasadi, Gauda Bhakta Vrinda. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hare Priya. Apavitra pavitrova sarvavastha gato piva yasmaret pundarika ksham sa bhayabhyantaram shuchi. In Krishna theology, Krishna is actually absorbed in his own blissful interaction with his eternal bhaktas in the realm of Goloka. He's not directly connected with the world. Because if you're directly connected with the world, then in some sort of way you touch it, and therefore indirectly or directly you're tainted by it. That was one of the arguments that the non-theistic schools say. That if Ishvara is connected with the world, then he's the creator, so then it sort of, well, whatever that means, it means different things. But in some sort of way, then he's connected with the impurities of the world. But in the Vaishnava traditions, Ishwara is absorbed in eternal blissful love being exchanges with his bhaktas. And then when it comes to creation of all those other things, then you manifest all these intermediaries, infinite number of Vishnu forms. There's 3 layers of Vishnu. There's the Mahavishnu, from which Karanodakashayi Vishnu lies on the Karanodakashayi ocean. Does it remind you of Genesis? In the beginning was the waters. So there's that Vishnu from whose pores multiple universes emanate. Parallel universes, if we want to borrow some language from physics. 2,000 years ago, that idea was in circulation. Infinite universes from the pores of Vishnu, and then Vishnu enters into each and every one of them, and within that there's the ocean and lies on the Shesha. Our friend Patanjali lies on Shesha, Sahasra Shirsha, right? We all know that. We chant it. We don't know what to do it. We chant it. We don't even know what it means, right? And then that's the one from whose navel comes the lotus. But meanwhile, in infinite other universes, the same thing's going on. Ours is a little universe, by the way, not a big one. And then there's the Antaryami. Then the third kind of evolutionary manifestation of Vishnu then enters the heart of every living being, not the Atman, not in Vaishnavism. And that's called the Antaryamin by Ramanuja. So just as the Atman pervades the body, then God pervades the Atman. But Krishna just plays. No, he doesn't have a job to do. You have a job to do. If you're a creator, then you have a dharma, don't you? Everything has a dharma. If you're going to say, well, God has a dharma, he creates, well, that means he's trapped like everybody else, then, doesn't it? And then he can't call himself infinitely free and supremely independent. He's like, oh wait, 14 billion years, got to create. Well, then he's trapped by some obligation. Therefore, God can only be absorbed in his own blissful nature, and part of that nature of bliss, because love is higher than bliss. Love is higher than the swarupa bliss in theism. But the praying love requires 2. Bliss, you can have bliss in your own nature, that's fine. It can be autonomous bliss, swarupa vastana, fine, bliss. Not that Patanjali calls it that, but Vedanta does. But Krishna experiences, he has his own swarupa, infinite bliss of his own nature, but experiences higher, even higher, infinitely ever increasing, ever expanding, can't be static. If it's static, then it has some boundary. Then you say, well, what's the boundary then? So it has to be infinite, infinitely expanding love. And that it takes 2. Of course, with God, infinite living beings. And everyone has their own Krishna. All the gopis got their own Krishna. Next week join us if you care to. In our Krishna class, we'll be looking at when Narada goes to visit Krishna in 16,108 palaces. And in each one, Krishna is doing a different thing with a different wife. All right, back we go. Mundaka. What are we? Kaṭha. Oh, well, the reason I said all of that was, therefore we pray to the intermediaries. I mean, we might think we pray directly to God. And we do, but through a manifestation of God that is in touch with us, connected with the world. We hope, of course, we aspire for that supreme realm of pure bliss and love. But that is a long way away, my friends, at least for someone like me. So someday we'll do a workshop on bhakti. We'll deal with some of this stuff. Philosophy is fine, but it never gets anywhere. Where does it ever get anywhere? Have these debates have they ever been exhausted? Advaita, Advaita, going on from the Upanishads. Shankara talks of so many previous teachers, we don't even have records of them. How's it ever going to be resolved? So where do we get up to, my friends? Good evening to you all. So third wish, and Nachiketa said, no, thank you. I'd rather not have an elephant. They eat too much. So So therefore he wants knowledge. Okay, now, so I don't know how far we got up. Whose dharma was it to tell us?
14.
14. So Nachiketas, tell me what you see. Well, let's go back one. So he's really happy when death is now, as any teacher is, and he has a disciple that's really sincere. All you need is one, because then you know the teachings will be continued. When a mortal has heard it, understood it, when he has drawn it out, really sort of gone deep, drawn it out, examined it from all points of view, really stretched it out, and grasped the subtle point of doctrine, he rejoices. For he has found something in which he could rejoice. Finally, something that's worth rejoicing in. Everything else is petty, trivial, ephemeral, and temporary. And even in the peak of it, some great, grand, sensual indulgence, it's not really as great as we imagined it would be before. But here you can rejoice. For he has found something worthwhile. That's the Atman, eternal bliss. To him I consider my house to be open, Nachiketas. You pass through. Yogi, death can have you, Yama, death, you can have the body. The Atman is eternal. Nachiketas, well, tell me what you see as different from the right doctrine and from the wrong, right? Because he said both bind a man, remember, and a woman, both good and the bad. So what's different from then? Different from what's done here and what's left undone, different what has been and what's yet to be. Tell me what's different from all of this, what we know of. Conventional reality, death, the word that all the Vedas disclose. You see, we'll see the Mandukya later on, maybe next week or the week after, if we continue. The word that all austerities proclaim. You do tapas, focusing the mind. What are you focusing on? Seeking which people live brahmacharya, student, but it's brahmacharya. That word now I will tell you in brief. Well, it's pretty brief, it's only one phony. It is Om. So Om is Brahman, so right back to the Upanishads. So that's what he means by all the Vedas disclosed. He really means the Vedanta, the Upanishads. And it's right there in Patanjali, Ishvara, Tasyavachaka, Pranavaha, Om is called Pranavaha. What's special about this? Well, this alone is the syllable that is Brahman, not that represents Brahman. It is Brahman. Normal language represents something other than itself. I think we discussed this. Here is a pen. But by saying pen, I'm not writing, and you could call it anything, right? Kalam, right? Stilo, anything. You could call it anything. So it's a social convention that we call it a pen in Anglo-Saxon. But you could call it anything, and there's a difference between the word pen and the word pen represents something outside of itself. It isn't the pen. It's a vocalic signifier, so, as Sozio might have said. But that's not what Om is. It doesn't signify Brahman. It's not like a stand-in, a sonic stand-in that we use and everybody knows, oh, I know what Om refers to, like that. I know what a pen refers to. I know what Om refers to. No, not like that. It is sonic presence. Big difference. It's the syllable that is Brahman. So this alone is the syllable that's supreme. When indeed one knows this syllable, you know Brahman then. You know it. You completely absorb the mind in Om, the mind's absorbed in Brahman. At least that's the goal of jnana. And it's the goal of bhakti as long as you understand, along with Ramanuja and others, that Brahman is the personal Ishvara. They're the school's part company. When indeed one knows the syllable, he obtains his every wish. He obtained everything. You could say he obtains his every wish, or you could say he has no more wishes in terms of the mundane wishes, but now he's fulfilled the goal of life. The wise one, he is not born. He does not die. Hang on, I'm going to read the Gita for you in a second. Which page is this? This is, where are we? Sorry. Yeah, here we are. All right, let's have a look at the Gita. Give me a second, it's over there. My books are falling apart, look at that. So the Gita, 2:18 and 2:19. 2:18 and 2:19. Right, 2:18. He's not born, he does not die. Okay, so, oh yeah, here it is, 2:20. Okay, so here we have the Gita quotes one verse verbatim from the Upanishads, clearly just taking it right out, and one verse almost verbatim, slightly paraphrased. Why? Because the Gita is, well, let's see the two verses first. The wise one. He is not born, he does not die. Right? He's eternal. He has not come from anywhere. He's infinite. Where's he going to come from? In his pure nature, he pervades everything. He has not become anyone because it never changes. The body just changes according to karma. According to karma, our samskaras form a subtle body which create a blueprint, which then attracts, if you will. Some schools even think of it that way. When the subtle body leaves the gross body with the Atman, it's kind of like a magnet. Jains especially have this very kind of almost a solid idea of karma, that it's snigdha, that it's kind of like an oozy sort of substance. And then all this, the material molecules sort of cluster around it to form the gross body. Of course, that's going on in the womb. But however you want to conceive of it, he doesn't become anyone. He's unborn and eternal, primeval and everlasting. This is all saying nitya, eternal. And he's not killed when the body's killed, right? Look at the Gita. Neither is, and so the language is a bit different because the translation's different. The Sanskrit's identical, almost. Neither is this born, nor does it die. This is 2:20, Bhagavad Gita. Notice it's 2:20. Nor having been will it again come not to be. Birthless, eternal, primeval, exactly the same. It is not slain when the body is killed. He's used kill, but you can use slain, identical. And this one too. Almost. If the killer thinks that he kills, if the killed thinks that he is killed, both of them fail to understand. He neither kills nor is killed from the point of view of the Atman. Okay, so that's verse 19, Bhagavad Gita. Exactly the same number, notice, 2:19. This is not coincidentally, my friends. 2:19 here, 2:19 in the Gita, verbatim. What do you think's going on? The Gita is because the Gita is introducing new teachings, karma yoga, that you can act in the world. Krishna says in the Gita, there were two types of yoga, and one got lost. In the beginning, I gave two types of yoga. One got lost. And I've come now to reestablish the lost one, Arjuna, to you. The action in the world one got lost. So when you're introducing something new, you can't really do that in an orthodox Vedic culture. There is nothing new. There's only eternal truth, and they're already encapsulated in the scriptures. So what are you going to bring in that's new? So Krishna is making this connection with the Upanishads to ground the Gita, because the first chapter of chapter 2 of the Gita starts off with this Upanishadic jnana right up till about 247. That's when he introduces karma yoga. So there's a shift. He indicates the shift. He said that thus far I've been giving you the knowledge of, he calls it Sankhya. Now I'm going to give you the knowledge of what he calls yoga, but he means karma yoga. But he wants those who are receiving the teachings to understand this is the Upanishadic teachings. I'm just taking it into a slightly different direction, action in the world direction. But to make that point, he's quoting the Upanishads verbatim. Look, the killer thinks he's killed. The killed thinks he's killed. Both of them fail to understand. He neither kills nor is killed, right? 19. 2:19. 2:19 Gita. He who imagines this, the slayer. And he who imagines this, the slain. The translator's just chosen, instead of saying killer, he's put slayer. That's not the difference in the Sanskrit. Sanskrit's identical, the difference in the translator. Neither of them understand. He who imagines this slain or the slayer, neither of them understand. The self does not slay, nor is it slain. Isn't that interesting? Finer than, this is all like second chapter Gita, finer than the finest, larger than the largest. It's finer meaning subtle. I would have translated this as subtler. It's subtle. It's subtler than. Think of the tattvas. The grossest is earth, has the most tamas in it. Next grossest is water. It's still dense and solid. Then fire is more ethereal. Then air, you can feel it. Then ether. Then you go back into ego. Then you go right back into buddhi. Each one is progressively sattva if you go back, or more tamasic if you go the other way. But the consciousness is finer than all of it. That's how you can only pervade something grosser than you. That's a sort of axiom in Sankhya philosophy. To pervade something, you have to be subtler than that thing you pervade, obviously. Obviously, you do. So fire can pervade a piece of metal, but the metal can't really pervade the fire. So fire is subtler than metal. So the subtlest of all is the Atman. Of course, in theism, Ishvara is subtler again. So finer than the finest being intellect, larger than the largest is the Atman that lies here hidden in the heart of a living being. It's hidden. We can't see it with our senses. We can't see it with our mind. Without desires. Desires are in the mind, the ragas and dvesha, free of sorrow, raga dvesha, sukha dukkha maybe, the Sanskrit. And notice a little bit of bhakti here. A man perceives by the Creator's grace. The Atman's not a creator. It's trapped by karma. Right? What does Patanjali see? How do you get samadhi? Samadhi siddhir Ishvara pranidhana. By the grace of Ishvara pranidhana, you get samadhi. So a man perceives by the Creator's grace the grandeur of the self, the wonders of the self. Wonder in what sense? Something's wonderful if you've never seen anything like it. Then that's what you should call a wonder, right? Wonder, like the Northern Lights, just wondrous. Why? Because there's nothing that compares with it. Sitting down, right? Because it doesn't move; it's in the heart, but he roams afar. The consciousness spreads all over. If it's not trapped by ego and body and mind, it can pervade the whole universe. Patanjali says, chapter 3 and 4. So, but he's sitting down. It's located. It's not. It is a substance in Sankhya and yoga and Gita. The quality of which is consciousness. The substance is the Atman, and the quality of the Atman is chitti shakti, or chit, or chaitana. There's various words. That quality of the substance Atman can roam afar, can go anywhere. Lying down, he goes everywhere without moving. It's just like the light of the sun or the light of a lamp. The lamp doesn't move, but the light can go everywhere until it gets blocked by a wall. Otherwise, it could pervade the whole universe. The God, little g. Now, why is he using this language? Because he's talking to people who come out of the Vedic culture. You have to use the language that the people understand. What did the gurus went to the West? What language did they say? Oh, the soul, heaven, God. Back then, now we shouldn't use that language anymore. We don't need to. But you have to use the language that people understand. So they're worshipping the little Vedic gods with their rituals to get petty stuff like rain and offspring. So that's the God. Remember one of the previous Upanishads, that's the God you should be worshipping. Atman. Ceaselessly exalting, who besides me is able to know? Oh, that's very humble of you. All right. Oh, of course, I beg your pardon. That's Yamad's death. Yeah, he's right. Yeah, who besides him? And Nachiketa said that. Who besides you? Who else can tell me this? So Yama's agreeing. Yeah, it's true. Only I can tell you about what happens after death. When he perceives this immense, all-pervading self, potentially, now trapped by karma, potentially can be infinite. That doesn't mean, by the way, you could be infinite and still an individual. We don't have to sign off on Advaita Vedanta when we talk about it, all-pervading self. There can be an infinite number of individual Atmans, all-pervading. Just like you can have 100 lights in the same room, and they're all individual light bulbs, and they're all pervading the same room. They don't bump into each other. The lights don't knock each other out. They just co-penetrate the same room. What's wrong with that? You can. That's the Sankhya view, the yoga view. It's not the Advaita Vedanta view, but there are different ways of thinking about this. It's bodiless within bodies, stable within unstable things. Right? Bodies changing, minds changing. So when he perceives this, what's perception? Drashtrahu, drashtarshana, drishi shakti, drishi matra, The third sutra, the seer. What's a seer do if he doesn't see? Why do you say the seer? The seer is the one who sees. What else is a seer? Who's seeing is perceiving in the sense of consciousness. I wish we could invent the word consciouser. We can invent any words we want to. People do it all the time. The consciouser is consciousing through the quality of consciousness. How about that? Let's make up some vocab for a little svadhyaya. The consciouser, because you have the thinker and the smeller and the talker and the seer and the hearer. Well, let's have the consciouser then. And the seer and the hearer hears sound, and the smeller smells smell. So the consciouser consciouses objects of consciousness. Sometimes when we make up language, it forces us to step out of our box and think a little differently. So let's do that. So he's stable within unstable beings. A wise man ceases to grieve. We grieve, we grieve. We're always grieving. We lost this, we want that. We lost this, we lost that. Lamenting, hankering and numbing, lamenting. That's one of the functions of the mind. Hankers for what it doesn't have and laments for what it thinks it's lost. The self cannot be grasped by teachings or by intelligence. You can know of it. Obviously, Patanjali says you do svadhyaya, but you can't grasp it. By grasping, he means experience. You can't experience it by learning, my friends. We learn, why do we do svadhyaya? To inspire us to deepen our practice. And bhakti, even worse. Even worse. Bhakti narratives, the big proud Brahmins are always dumped on in bhakti stories. The proud Brahmins, they're the biggest fools of all. So we can't grasp him, but we can know of it. The teachings and our intelligence, we can kind of use those as instruments. We can't grasp it that way, or even by great learning. We can't. Actually, learning just makes you proud, because you dispense. If you identify with learning and your ego molds itself around learning, then that's what you think you are, and then you go out in the world under that facade, and that's your mode of presentation, and you just get attached to that. And it's especially insidious because yogis like to hear, and then you think you're a big learned person, and then you think actually they're honoring you, but they're not. They're honoring the teachings. It's very easy to glide into that identification that you somehow are the teachings, but you're not. You're just a medium. So, or even by great learning, only the man he chooses, the Atman, can grasp him, whose body the self chooses as his own. It's not quite clear what that means, but we could see what Shankara has in mind there. We could read it, doesn't matter. Not a man who has not quit his evil ways, my friends. Tapas, vairagya. It's got to, it's not just all Omi, hold hands, and it's hard work. We've got to perform tapas, whatever it is. We're all working on something. So not a man who has not quit his evil ways, nor a man who is not calm or composed, which means that we have to be sattvic, which means what? That we have to not be rajasic, what is not rajas? What is without rajas? Vai, raga. Vai means without. Raga, ragya, same more or less. Not even a man who is without a tranquil mind could ever secure it by his mere wit, not by your learning, not by your charisma. Don't be fooled by charisma, my friends. Charisma's got nothing to do with it. Nothing. I've seen so many grand, charismatic, sannyasi, big yogis, all come tumbling down. 45 years I've been watching. For whom the Brahman and the Kshatriya are both like a dish of boiled rice. It doesn't matter, you die. What do you do with the boiled rice? You eat it, it's gone, consume it. So death consumes, it doesn't matter whether you're a high caste Brahmin or a Kshatriya, these are the two high castes. Death is like the sprinkled sauce, just come and consume them. Who truly knows where he is? Where's death? Where is he, my friends? We think we're not going to die today. What Patanjali calls Abhinivesha. Abhinivesha? You say clinging to life, but really, what is clinging to life? Oh, I'm not. Well, there's so many ways of thinking of it. Here's one way. Oh, I'm not going to die today. That's Abhinivesha. You think a person walks out into the street and gets hit by a tractor trailer and squished in 10 seconds? Do you think that person who saw that coming? Abhinivesha, not today. I won't die today. Noah's a Brahman. Okay, do we need this? Are we going to do? We don't need to do, because we obviously can't read everything. Where is that going? Noah's a Brahman. I have it all highlighted in my this version here. All right, well, let's do it. Noah's a Brahman, men with 5 fires. So this will be the just Brahmin, the regular dharma of the Brahmin is to have the daily fire sacrifice. I can't remember what the 5 fires are. I know there's 3 fires in most, but they're very good footnotes, by the way, Olibel. You just go to the back and see what he has to say about the 5 fires. 238. So you go to the back and he has notes. So you go to you look for the note for 238, and then you look at, so if you read this yourselves and you're interested, and you go down, 5 fires. Oh God, great. He says introduction page XLII. Well, fine. Well, then you can find out what it is, and they will be the 5. Actually, I'm kind of curious now. XLII. Give me 1 second. Beg your pardon. Here we are. 5 fires. Oh, there they are. There's a nice little chart. It is there's 3, but where's the 5? There's the east one, which you actually offer the ritual into. That's the east. Then there's the southern fire, which is to ward off evil, negative influences. It's called the Dakshinagni. So the east, this is a classic, there's many different setups for different kinds of wishes. So, depending on what you're asking for, the entire setup is different. The shape of the altar is different. But the classical kind of daily Brahmin's fat fire is, you have in the east is the way you actually put the oblations into, and it's called the Ahavaniya. Aha, right? Svaha. So that's the eastern fire called Ahavaniya. And then you sit in front of that, and then the various priests. There's a priest that recites the Rig Veda, another one that recites the Yajur Veda, another one that recites the Sama Veda, and another one that recites the Rig, Yajur, Atharva, and the Sama. Right? Then there's a Hotri who performs the ritual, the sacrifice. Then there's the southern fire, which is to ward off evil influences. So there's the actual one where you in the east where you put the offerings into, right, and you pour the ghee in the ladle, and you chant your Agnimehele Purohitam Yagnastyam Devam Ritvijam, and you put that in the eastern fire. Southern one, ward off ignorance. And then there's a western one, which is where you take the fire from the household and you bring it and you put it into the western fire. The western one is round, circular. The southern one is semicircular. The eastern one is square. So highly intricate, highly sort of very, very, very technical Vedic ritualism was very compared to other ritualisms we see elsewhere in the ancient world. So I don't know why he says, I don't know, there's only 3 fires. I don't know what the other 2 are, but we could find out very easily. So Noah's a Brahman, men with 5 fires, and with the 3 fire altars of Nachiketa. So there's 3. I don't know what the 5 are. I'm sorry. They call these 2 shadow and light. The 2 who have entered, the one into the cave of the heart, and the other into the highest region beyond. So we could think of one as Atman and one as Brahman in the kind of a cosmic sense, transcendent sense, and one is the little Atman in you and I. Both drinking the truth in the world of rites rightly performed. Right? That's the Vedic culture. What defines the Vedic culture? What is the Vedic culture? It's the Vedic sacrifice. And the entire civilization develops around that. The Brahmins perform it, the Kshatriya warriors protect it, and the civics order that develops around it. The Vaishyas engage in agriculture and trade and sustain it economically. They're the ones that pay for everything. And the workforce essentially do everything. But the whole thing, the maintenance of cities, the countryside, agriculture, everything in the Vedic ideology circles around the centerpiece of all that, the fulcrum, the pivot, the axis is the Vedic sacrifice. So, you're interested. Okay. Right, here, let's jump to here. Know the self as a rider in a chariot. And the body as the chariot, right? So the self is the rider, not the driver. The passenger does nothing, sits, does nothing. Body is the chariot. Who's driving it? The intellect is the charioteer. What's he using? The mind are the reins. What are the reins controlling? The senses are the horses. Where are the horses going? And the sense objects are the paths around them, right? So, world out there, sense objects, sight, smell. And the horses then are the 5 horses. And either they're controlled or they're not. If they're not, it's a very dangerous journey. Horses are pulling, one's pulling this way, one's pulling the other way. So it's a recipe for disaster. So the point is that then the mind should be controlling the senses. And what's controlling the mind? The intellect. What's the Atman doing? Nothing. The passenger. Just the passenger. And the chariot is the body itself. So yoga is the intelligence controlling the mind, controlling the senses. And boga is the opposite. He who is linked to the body, senses, and mind, the wise proclaim as the one who enjoys. You can enjoy, and you can either try to enjoy the senses, you can try, or you can seek the enjoyment of liberation. When a man lacks understanding of truth, and his mind is never controlled, his senses do not obey him. Mind wants this, wants that. The senses say, look, get this, look at that, buy this. So your senses do not obey him, like as bad horses do not obey a charioteer. But when a man has understanding of knowledge and his mind is ever controlled, yoga is about controlling the mind. We get to practice it every moment. When we get that impulse to open the fridge and pull out a snack, we're not really hungry, we're just bored. That's when we do our tapas. Just say no. We'll take questions after at the end. We'll do 2 hours of study at Judith, and then we take our questions. Okay. So that way everybody gets their 2 hours, because not everybody may be interested in other people's questions, but everybody will have a chance. When a man has understanding, we did that. The senses do obey him, as good horses a charioteer. When a man lacks understanding of his mind is unmindful, mind is never fixed, always flitting all over the place, worrying about this, hankering for that, always impure, always thinking about some sensual desire, some selfish concern. He doesn't reach that final step, liberation. But only stays on the round of rebirth. We don't control our minds. The minds just drag us. As they drag us through life, here and there in life, why would it be any different at death? They just drag us into some other existence. This is they have in life. Why do we think there's going to be magic at life, my friends? There was no magic at death. Why do we think there's going to be magic at death? Some magic wand. There's no magic in life. We have a mind as an instrument, and we get to control it, or we don't. So death is, and the proof will be, it all comes to a head at the moment of death. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that. So if a man has no understanding, he doesn't reach the final step. And then he's just trapped in the round of rebirth. But when a man has understanding, is mindful, is always controlling the mind, not letting the mind whimsically pull him or her here or there, always pure, he does reach the final step from which he's not reborn again. When a man's mind is his reins, intellect is charioteer, he reaches the end of the road, the highest step of Vishnu. Well, there's one of the few references to Vishnu being the supreme destination. As you can imagine, the Vaishnavas are very partial to this verse, because the highest step, the end of the road and the highest step is associated with Vishnu. So it's hard to make a case that this is by all of these, any of the later traditions have to work very hard to locate themselves in the Upanishads, because they only get 1 or 2 references each. The Shaivas do pretty good though. They have the whole Shvetashvatara Upanishads. So I have to say they're in pretty good shape with locating themselves in the Upanishads. Krishna bhaktas, I don't think so. They have to read things. They have to read things into the text, as everybody does. higher than the senses of the objects, right? Because the objects, higher than the objects is the mind. Why does it say higher than the senses of the objects? You'd think it should be the other way around. Higher than the objects of the senses, because the senses can perceive the objects cannot perceive the senses. This is a bit odd to me, but maybe the objects are higher than the senses because the objects can control the senses. Objects say, eat me, and they can force the senses to obey them. Maybe that's what it means, but I might have thought it should be the other way around, but anyway. Higher than the sense objects is the mind, that's fair enough. Higher than the mind is the intellect, because the mind is just the organizer, and it's sort of all this data coming in through the five senses. The mind is blocking most of it as irrelevant, and then organizing everything, schematizing it, seeing if something seems to be pressing and urgent, and then presenting the picture to the intellect. And the intellect then is the determinator, determines what to do with the information. It is the will. And the determinator, I don't know if there's a word, but let's make up another word, probably is, the one who determines. But higher than that is the immense self, the Atman. Now look at this. What is this? Higher as the immense self is the unmanifest. Now that could be Prakriti. In Sankhya, this word avyakta is used for Prakriti. And higher the unmanifest is the person. Well, who's that? Who's the person? The personal being, the Purusha. That will be Ishvara for the Ishvara traditions. They'd say, look, there's proof. Ishvara is the highest. And higher than Ishvara, there's nothing at all. How about that? The Vaishnavas are going to like that. Shaivas too. The theists, the personalists that believe the ultimate truth is personal. Well, look at this. This is working well for them. Not everything does, but this passage does. That is the goal. That is the highest state, the person. And certainly that is what Vaishnavas aspire for. The Vishnu strains of Vaishnavism, Vishnu Narayana, Krishna strains, Krishna. And of course, the Shaiva strains will be aspiring for Shiva. And there's goddess. Let's not forget the goddess. In the infinity of forms. It's just that the goddess hasn't produced ancient literature. So much of the goddess tantrika, hatha type material is much later. And it doesn't pervade the all of the subcontinental traditions in the same way as Vaishnavism. And so the goddess traditions are kind of strong in Bengal, they're strong up in the Himalayas and the foothills. And of course the goddess is worshipped in multiple forms all over India, but the literary traditions associated with the goddess are not you don't have the same ancient venerable literary traditions. That doesn't mean there wasn't worship. It doesn't mean there weren't sophisticated theologies. It just they didn't really get preserved and codified in literary traditions in the same way the sutras did and the Vaishnava canonical text did and the Shaiva canonical text did. But we have to always be mindful that there's a myriad of goddess with their own powerful and coherent theologies, perfectly coherent from within their presuppositions. Hidden in all beings, the self is not visibly displayed, yet people of keen vision, drashtra, we're talking about that kind of vision, consciousness. People of keen vision see him with eminent and sharp minds. So these sort of samadhi states, that's all meant, there's a mental state, all the sabija states. A wise man, let's see if we want to do all of this. A wise man should curb his speech and mind, control them with the intelligence. And then he should control intelligence with the immense self, and the latter with the tranquil self. And obviously you can see how this can be interpreted differently and by different commentators. All right, let's, this is nice. Arise, awake, pay attention, awake. There's a beautiful Bengali song, Jeev Jago, you sleeping soul, awake, awake, awake. You're not the body and not the mind. Recognize, realize your true nature. Pay attention when you've obtained your wishes. Razor's sharp edge is hard to cross. We could speculate what that means, right? Bhoga yoga could be that, the sharp edge between vidya, avidya, klishta, aklishta. Where's the actual dividing line? That poets say is the difficulty of the path. It has no sound or touch, no appearance, taste or smell. It doesn't have those kinds of qualities. Smell is the quality of solids. Taste is the quality of fluids. Appearance is the quality of fire. Touch is the quality of air. Sound is the quality of ether. Well, what's the quality of the Atman? None of those. What is it then? It's chitti, consciousness is its quality. Chitti Shakti. Shakti means a quality. Shakti means shak. Shak means to enable. So to enable something. So these are Shaktis. Sometimes they're called pranas, by the way. Pranas used in so many ways. So you are able to smell something because that thing has a Shakti about it, the quality of smell. And another thing, you're able to see it because it has Shakti, an enabling, a potency that enables, Shak to enable you to see. So these qualities enable experience. You can experience them because there's something in those objects that allow that lend themselves. There's something in sound that it lends itself to being heard. So why not think of it as an enabling quality? And if you like that, then you call it a Shakti. That's what a Shakti is, something that has Shak. Look up Shak in the dictionary. It will be to enable, to exert power, to Shak. No sound, no touch. The Atman doesn't. Earth has, water, air, ether. Each of them have, and the grosser one has all of them. So the last on the list of Mahabhutas is Earth, and it has all 5 qualities. But the quality specific to Earth is smell. But it has the other 4 qualities. And then you go back one, water, and it doesn't have 5, it has 4. It doesn't have smell. If water is smelly, it's because it's got earth elements mixed in with it, like muddy water, stinky water. You go back one, fire has 3 qualities. You can't taste it, but you can see it, touch it, and hear it. And you go back one, air. Air has 2 qualities, and that is touch and sound, and then ether only has 1, sound. So that's all Sankhya. That's all Sankhya business. That's Sankhya business. It has no sound or touch, no appearance, but the Atman doesn't have any of this. Or smell. It is without beginning or end. Anadi, 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 no creatio ex nihilo. Yoga would say, what a silly idea. You can't be creatio ex nihilo. Of course, the Christian would say, well, God can do anything. Why can you don't limit God by saying God can't do something? So that's a perfectly good answer. Nothing wrong with that answer. But the no Indian would even engage that idea. So no beginning or end, undecaying and eternal. When a man perceives it, fixed and beyond the immense, he is freed from the jaws of death. When you perceive the Atman. The wise man who hears or tells the tale of Nachiketas, an ancient tale told by death. That's me and you, my friends. We're hearing and telling. So let's see what nice little thing he's going to say about us. The wise man who hears or tell, man or woman who hears or tell the tale of Nachiketas, the ancient tale told by death, will rejoice in Brahman's world. Only problem is he doesn't say when. He's like a car salesman. You got to read the fine writing on the bottom. It says, oh, by the way, the tax is going to be 300% of the final price because we don't have those computer chips. So when are we going to rejoice in Brahman's world? Doesn't say. All right. If a man, pure and devout, proclaims this secret in a gathering of Brahmins or during a meal for the dead, just an odd thing to say, but often you have these, there's a name for them. And I think they're just a sort of, I think it's just an ancient custom that even the Upanishads, tack on these little boons at the end of the teachings. Even the Bhagavata does it. If you tell the story of Krishna dancing on the heads of Kali, right? The totally beautiful, transcendental story. And at the end of it ends up with some silly little boon. Oh, you will never die of snake bite. I think that's just a very ancient custom that this was how the teachings were ended. I'm not sure about that. That's my speculation. Maybe I'll look into it sometime. All right, so we're doing okay. Let's see, are we going to read? Let's read the whole thing. Come on, let's read the whole thing, my friends. The self-existent one, sat, 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 sat. Self-existent, sat. Pierce the apertures outward. the apertures of the body. There's holes in the body that allow consciousness to pour out. The holes are the eyes, the 9 gates of the body, remember? Eyes, ears, nose, mouth, genital, anus. Pierce the apertures outward. Therefore, one looks out and not into oneself. That's the difference between a yogi is looking within. Avidya looking without. Then you find happiness without. What's out there that I can enjoy today? But a certain wise man in search of immortality turned his sight inward. Not like all these others are going out through the apertures. Inward. What did he see? Saw the self within. Fools. That's nice. Thank you, Yama. Fools pursue outward desires. Fools. Actually, Krishna says it. Mudha. Mudha, well, he says, fools do not recognize me. Mudha. Mudha mama vijananti. Fools don't understand me, Krishna says. They think I'm just a human or a legend or a metaphor. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. Fools pursue outward desires and enter the trap of death spread wide. Remember? Keep our eye on the ball. Nachiketas is asking what happens after death. Fools pursue outward desires and enter the trap of death. What's the trap of death? You pursue outward desires, you plant a seed, and now you've got to take the fruit. Patanjali says, Drishta, Drishta, Janma Vedaniya. Some might come in this life, but Adrishta. Some come in the next life. So then what? That's the trap. You've got to come back then, haven't you? To take the seed, haven't we? Not you, we, me. So we're fools. Fools pursue outward desires and enter the trap of death. The trap being that you think you're acting and you don't realize like the mouse think is a little piece of cheese, goes in, snap. Consequence. So we're fools. We think, oh, let me go and enjoy some sense object, and snap. The minute we do that, we're bound to the reaction. But the wise know what constitutes the immortal. And look at this. In unstable things here, do not seek the stable. Don't look for permanent happiness in impermanent things. We're all looking for permanent happiness, my friends. Every creature, every embodied being, even the tree. Even the tree. Well, there it is, stuck in England. Why isn't there any sun? Or it's stuck in Spain. Why isn't there any rain? Fools pursue outward desires, but the wise know what constitutes immortal. And in unstable things, right? What Patanjali, when he talks about the sarvam dukkam, all is suffering, right? Let's bring up Patanjali. When he talks about sarvam dukkam, why is sarvam dukkam? Well, let's not bother. Parinama, because it's unstable. 2:15. Some of you know the verse. The wise, everything is suffering. And then what's the explanation? First word, parinama, unstable. In unstable things, do not seek the stable. Appearance, taste, smell, sounds, touches, and sexual acts, that by which one experiences these, by the same one understands, that one which experiences it, you could take it as the mind or consciousness. Let's go with the mind for now. That by which one experiences these sensations, by the same one understands. The same mind, Patanjali says, is klishta or aklishta. The same mind can either be trapped by the senses or pursue liberation. Patanjali says, mind is your friend or your enemy. Patanjali says the vrittis are klishta or aklishta. It's the same one, the same mind. Who's doing viveka? Who's doing the nirodhering? The mind. When you sit in chitta-vritti nirodha, who is nirodhering the mind? The mind. That's the nirodha samskara, Patanjali says. Where is the nirodha samskara? In the mind. So that by which one experiences these, by the same one understands. What then is here left behind? Not sure what that means, but we can speculate about what that last line means. What then is here left behind? You can all think about how you might like to fit. It's all right to speculate a meaning as long as it fits in with the overall, in general, the mode of traditional exegesis. When you study a sacred text traditionally, of course, in modern times, we're all so proud. We think we know so much better than the tradition just because we know a little philology or whatever it might be. But in traditional modes of exegesis, means how do you interpret a sacred text, or hermeneutics, how do you interpret a sacred text? When there's a passage that has something you're not clear about, right? So here you say, what then is left behind? You think, well, what does that mean? What do? You go into the commentaries. So the Upanishads, that means Shankara first. You see if Shankara has anything interesting to say. And then there's others. Now, if you find a passage that nobody comments, maybe it wasn't an issue for them. It's not that they run away from anything. They will have an explanation for everything that they are aware of that needs explanation. And there may be some things they just think don't need explanation. They're not going to, so what do we do if we're going to be, what would a traditional student do if there's a question about the meaning of something, can't find it in, first you turn to the commentators. Can't find it, then you're allowed to speculate, provided your interpretation fits within the overall, what they call Siddhanta, or the overall philosophical presuppositions of that text. You can't venture an interpretation that just steps out of the boundaries of that particular tradition you're studying. That's how it works. So therefore, later commentators will always build on the previous commentators, but then they may add something, because there may be conversations going on in later times that were not going on in earlier times. Like now we have to have conversations with physicists and neuroscientists about consciousness, physicists about, about what metaphysics and what ontology and what is real, what are forces and what is out there. So then those conversations require even a traditional thinker to come up with ways of explaining something which can respond to the present day and age. But it has to be within the contours of the tradition, if it is to be a traditional, a traditionally authentic explanation. Does that make sense? Everybody? We doing okay? That makes sense? Okay. Susan,
Yes.
What's a 50-50? What was a 50-50? Susan's like, così. Look, you can, it'll come up again. We'll touch on this again. All right. That by which one perceives both the states of sleep and being awake. One is conscious. The mind is asleep. The mind is awake. The mind is dreaming. The four states of consciousness is only a rhetorical. There's a Mandukya Upanishad coming up later. The entire half of it is about the four states of consciousness. Actually, the consciousness has no states. It's just consciousness. It's being rhetorical. What has states then? The mind has states. What are the states of the mind? Waking, dreaming, sleeping. And then it says the fourth. The fourth is not a state of the mind. It's a state of consciousness. So here when we see this is actually phrased better. This is more accurate, because the awareness doesn't change, but it perceives the states of sleep and being awake. Consciousness never goes to sleep. It's absorbed in the mind. And then it's just absorbed in whatever the mind state the mind is in. And the mind is in a waking state. The mind is in a dreaming state. And the mind is in a deep sleep state. And when you get rid of all those, then the Upanishads say the fourth. Patanjali says the Svarupa, otherwise Vritti Sarupyam, otherwise it's absorbed in the mind. Knowing that it's the immense, all-pervading self, a wise man does not grieve. That which perceives is the immense, all-pervading self. These are objects of perception. A mental state of sleep, a mental state of wakefulness. That's mental states, mind states. When a man perceives close at hand, the Atman is the closest possible thing. There's a story, and Shankara quotes it, of the, it's like having a diamond, like you have these necklaces that, what are they called? They're right up against your, like my neck beads here. These are Tulsi neck beads. I can't see them. See? Tulsi is the sign of a Vaishnav. I can't see them. It's so close. It's too close. Sankhya says you can't see something, and it gives a list of reasons of why you can't see something. It wants to say, well, there's an Atman. Then it says, well, look, it preempts the opponent. The opponent says, well, I can't see the Atman. And then Sankhya says, and the Sankhya Karika goes, well, actually, you can't see even mundane things under certain conditions. If it's too far, it's too close, it's too subtle, if it's blocked. And he gives a list of 6 or 7 reasons. In our normal, everyday experience, there are things we can't perceive. And one of them being too close. It's too close. When a man perceives close at hand this living, honey-eating self, nectar, amrita, I guess it means blissful, the Lord of what was and what will be, it does not seek to hide from him. It is available, experienceable. Patanjali says right off the bat, drashtu swarupe tada, then, if you do this, then, if you chitta vritti nirodha, then it doesn't seek to hide. And then then all these verses. So indeed is that. 6, it is, do we need to read these? Let's have a look. I think we'll skip these. We can't really, we're not losing anything. Look, these are esoteric kind of thing, esoteric references to the fire sacrifices, and we don't need to let them detain us, but people back then would have made sense of them. The 2 fire drills is what you make the fire. For the Vedic sacrifice, you have the stick, and then then there's a lower piece of stick, and then you rub the stick into the stick and you make fire. So these are all references to that sort of thing. And Shankara loves this verse here. He loves it. Because there's nowhere in the Upanishads that says there's 2 levels of reality, one real and one false. But here, with your mind alone, you must understand it. There is no diversity at all. So that's a real Advaita-friendly verse. Shankara is very happy with that. Although he doesn't quote it as much as you think he could. He could get some mileage out of this. There is no diversity, Advaita, no Dvaita. So you can see how that certain verses lend themselves to certain later Vedanta. And not only that, but from death to death he goes who sees here any kind of diversity. Very, very Advaita type verse. If you think there's a duality here, you don't realize that there's only Brahman. Sarvamidam Kalu Brahman. Everything is Brahman, but you think, no, there's me and there's things out there and there's God somewhere. From death to death he goes. Very Advaitic friendly. And if you have Advaita orientations, make a note of this one. So sometimes it's the Atman is described as the size of a thumb, and elsewhere it's described as take the tip of a hair, divide it into 10,000 parts, and it's one of those 10,000 parts, a tip of a hair. Both are rhetorical. Don't take it literally. These is for meditation. Actually, I do remember the commentators here. This comes up in the Vedanta Sutra, and it says, what does that mean? The size of a thumb? It just means it allows you to contemplate it. So the person the size of the thumb resides within the body, the Lord of what was and what will be. From him, he does not hide himself. So the Atman. We'll skip all of that. Nothing interesting. The unborn one, the Atman, free of crooked thoughts. It's pure in its own essential nature. Has a fort with 11 gates. 11, hang on, wait, there was 9 a minute ago. So you've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, that's 6. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, anus, genital, mouth. Okay, now I remember, it's coming back to me. One of them, the commentator says, is right in the head. You know, when babies have that soft thing where the skull joins, that's one. So in other words, where it's 9, it's the 9 we can count. And where it's 11, the extra one is, one of them is the skull, and I can't remember the other one. But I would think ladies would have an extra one, wouldn't they? But anyway, let's see, you can figure that out. All right. So one who attends it will not grieve, attends the unborn one. But freed from it, he will be set free. Free from what? I suppose the fort with 11 gates. Sometimes the Atman is called a goose. Very interesting. The goose. Hamsa. And you know, that's a very old Indo-European word. That's why the German airline is called Lufthansa. Hansa, the swan. And in German it remains Hansa, and it's a very, very old, and it's Hansa. It's almost identical to the Germanic Lufthansa, you've heard of Lufthansa, the air Hansa. So we'll skip all of this and go down to, I love it when he says, so indeed is that. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of mint tea, my friends. Give me a second. My voice is going a bit dry. So not by the out breath nor the in breath, the pranas, does any mortal live. Something deeper than that. By another do people live, on which these two depend. If there's no consciousness in Atman, then the air is just useless. We were having a discussion of air in another workshop. What is prana? What is it? I have a whole book on prana in my office. And someone, sometimes, scholars do actually really useful research. Well, often they do. And he collected all the references to prana in the different texts. And obviously, a lot of stuff from the Hatha traditions. But there's no concise agreement. The different texts say different things about what is it? Where does it fit on the 25 elements of Sankhya? You have property, then buddhi, then ahankara, then you have mind, then you have 5 gyanindriyas, ear, eye, which is not the organs, by the way. Don't think it's that primitive. When you have those eye, ear, nose, don't think that's the eyeball. That's the shaktis pervading, enabling sight. And the organ is just that through which it gets expressed. And likewise with the 5, karmendriyas, right? It's listed as if it's some silly little primitive, the hand, the anus. It's not the organs, my friends. It's the shaktis that enable those functions. So there are 10 shaktis. Sometimes they're called pranas. And then there's the qualities, the things that are perceived, and the substances within which they reside. Sound resides in ether, and so on. Where's prana in that? You ever asked yourself? Well, it's either, as far as I can see, from looking through this book and reading various commentaries, it's either vayu, air, mixed with buddhi, or it's vayu mixed with consciousness, and it's the vayu, and prana is vayu, and it's the vayu which takes the consciousness around the body. It's one of those two. I'm quite happy with either of them, and I've seen both mentioned. So prana, right? Did you ever ask yourself where is it? It's a Sankhya thing. The Sankhya, it's Sankhya that posits prana. So it's one of those two. Not by the out breath nor the in breath does any mortal live. Oh, we read that. Come. I love this. Come, Upanishad. Come and sit down. Come sit down. I'll tell you the secret, an eternal Brahman. I'll tell you the secret, eternal formulation of truth. He has some strange translations, Oliver. But I like his translation. And what happens to the self, Gautama? Going back to his original question. I'll tell you when it encounters death. And here we have one of the early references, not the earliest. We looked at the Brihad, remember the caterpillar going from one leaf to the other. And then we had the metaphor of the weaver, where, remember? Weaves something and then knocks it down, and then breaks it up and uses the wool to weave something else. We remember those passages? Here's not the earliest, but a very early one. Some enter a womb by which an embodied self attains a body. Others pass into a stationary thing, like what? Well, how about like a tree? According to what? According to what they have done, according to what they have learned. What have you learned? What's the goal of life? Have you've been taught the goal of life is to make money and enjoy yourself? Or have you learned that the goal of life is to seek the Atman? This person, creating every desire, consciousness is at the source of it all, who lies awake within those who sleep. Consciousness never goes to sleep. Don't think the consciousness goes to sleep. The mind goes to sleep, the body goes to sleep, not consciousness. That alone is the pure. That is Brahman. That alone is the mortal. On it all the worlds rest. Right? The very definition of Brahman in the Vedanta Sutra, second verse, that which from which emanates creation, that on which all the worlds rest. Beyond it, no one can ever pass. What's beyond it? Consciousness. Of course, unless you're a bhakta and you believe that Ishvara is beyond it, and as the Shweta will say. As the single fire entering living beings, right? Fire takes a different shape depending on the receptacle, depending on the piece of wood or what's being burnt. The flames are going to be different, distinct. Every single, even you have two bits of wood that look identical, flames will be different. Maybe right, as a single fire, it's the same fire. Ultimately, fire is fire. But entering living beings adapts its appearance to match that of each. So the single self within each being adapts its appearance to match that of each, yet remains quite distinct from the body. So now a single self, you know how Advaita would interpret that? Literally a single self. What about the dualists? Well, they would say, well, there's lots of selves, but they're all the same. And in that sense, they're single. They're not like there's different Atmans. The Atman is the same. There may be a multiplicity of them, but the actual Atman is Satchidananda. One Atman is Satchidananda, another Atman is Satchidananda. So in that sense, they're the same. So you see how all of these passages can be pulled either way. They can be pulled in an Advaita way, or a non-dual way, or they could be pulled into a dualistic, pluralistic way. That's why you have different schools. That's why the Vedanta Sutra was written, to clarify it. Did it succeed? No. Why do I say it didn't succeed? Because it just created a whole new problem, and then it created the commentaries, and they all completely differ from each other. The Vedanta is a real sectarian enterprise, not like yoga. Yoga, the commentaries all pretty much agree. They're all in line with each other. We don't have that problem with the Yoga Sutras. As a single wind entering living beings adapts its appearance to match, it repeats the same thing. The wind also, takes the contours of any hollows and holes it enters. Okay. As the sun, the eye of the whole world, is not stained by visual faults external to it. The sun shines on dirty places, but it's not stained. It shines on, urinals and places like that, but the sun isn't stained. It's not stained by visual faults external to it. So the single self of every being is not stained by the suffering of the world. It's aloof from it. Krishna says it doesn't, it is not tainted. Gita. It's quite distinct from it. The one controller, the self within every being, who makes manifold his single appearance, right? All the bodies, all the karmas are different. And that's one reason why Sankhya says there must be a plurality of Atmans. Sankhya doesn't like Advaita. The Sankhya Karikas argues against Advaita. How can there be one Atman? Everyone has different karma. How does the one how does it end up with a bunch of different karmas and different bodies if it's just one? How does it fracture? You can't fracture Atman. Atman cannot be, right in the beginning of the Gita, Krishna says it can't be cut, it can't be severed, it can't be in any way. It can't be made into parts. How does the one Atman get fractured then? Sankhya is going to say, no, there are different living beings because there are different Atmans. And there always have been. Not one. If there was one, there'd just be one karma then, wouldn't there? Atman cannot fracture. Brahman cannot fracture. And then of course, you know what Shankara would say, it doesn't really show a fracture, it's an illusion. Fracturing is an illusion. Well, then what's Sankhya going to say? Well, what's illusion then? Where's illusion come from? Where is it come floating in from? Is it something else? Then you've got dualism. Is it in Brahman? Well, it can't be in Brahman because Brahman is by definition pure chit. You can't have a chit covering chit. It's like saying the sun is dark. That doesn't make sense. So these are the arguments between the schools. The self within every being, who makes manifold his single appearance. And single, you could take in a Advaitin way, as Shankara would, or you could say single in the sense that each Atman is identical in some sort of way, and then the bodies are different. The wise who perceive him as abiding within themselves, they alone, not others, enjoy eternal happiness. Only if we see the Atman can we get eternal happiness. Otherwise, we just get momentary little Kodak moments that don't last very long. It's changeless among the changing, the intelligent among intelligent beings in a chit sense, by the way. The one who dispenses desires among the many. The wise who perceive him within themselves, they alone, not others, enjoy unending peace. This is, okay. This is that, so they think. Although the highest bliss can't be described. You can't say this is that. You can't describe it in sort of any kind of human modes of language. But how should I perceive it? Well, then how can I even talk about it? Why should I seek it? Why should I seek it? You want me to seek something, you can't even talk about it, you can't describe it, you can't say anything about it. Well, wait, you want me to go and give my life up and seek it? Well, I'm not signing that. I'm not signing off on that contract. How should I perceive it? Does it shine? Does it radiate? There the sun does not shine. No, the moon and stars, their lightning does not shine. Of this common fire need we speak. If those don't shine, how's common fire going to shine there? It's the contrary. Him alone, as he shines, do all things reflect. The luminosity of the sun and the moon reflect that effulgence of Brahman. Him alone. This whole world radiates with his light, the lights of Brahman. A bit like Plato's. I have to go back and revisit Plato's Shadows of the Cave, but a lot of this reflects that. Oh, and then we have the banyan tree. If you're interested in this, again, commentators do different things. I don't want to get into it. Look at Gita 15.1, beginning of chapter 15 is the banyan tree, right? I don't want to get into the various ways of explaining it. It's not really worth it. So its roots above, its branches below. This is the eternal banyan tree. That alone is the bright. That is Brahman, right? Gita 15.1. We find the same thing. The Gita is really, scholars will date the Gita as dated at the same time period as these later Upanishads, not maybe the early ones, right? So Krishna says in Gita chapter 1, they speak of the great banyan tree, Ashvata, it's called Ashvata, having its roots above and branches below. So the Krishna says they speak. They speak. You notice when the Gita says they say, who's the they? Well, here's the they right there for this one, right? Krishna says, Urdhvamulam adha shakam, and where does he say they speak? Prahur, they say. Well, who says it? The Upanishads. So its roots above, its branches below. This is the eternal banyan tree. That alone is the bright. That is Brahman. That alone is the immortal. On it, all the worlds rest. Beyond it, no one can pass. All that is here, whatever that lives, having arisen, moves within the breath. Great is the fear. The bolt is raised up. Those who know it become immortal. Who knows what that means? The bolt is raised up. But again, you might find Shankara has something interesting to say. And then we don't need to read all of these, but you can on your own. And then we get back to the hierarchy of the selves. Higher than the senses is the mind. Higher than the mind is the essence. Higher than the essence is the immense self. Higher than the immense self is the unmanifest. So then you have to plug in what are all these things, and you put Prakriti, you put Buddhi, you put Prakriti. But the point is, where does it end up? Higher than the unmanifest is the person, Purusha, evading all. And now Shankara's going to say that Purusha is the Atman. And Ramanuja is going to say that's Narayana, that's Ishvara. So here we'll see one of the many places where the Vedanta traditions will interpret differently. I don't think I want to do Vedanta Sutras, my friends. It's kind of boring. You just go round and round in circles. You end up nowhere. Maybe I'll do a short workshop if any of you are really interested. I'd rather do something, that's more, I don't know, closer to my heart, our hearts. I don't know. We'll see if we want to. Maybe we'll see what we feel like in February if we want to do anything else. His appearance is beyond the range of sight. No one can see him with the sight. With the heart, with insight, viveka, with thought, Has it been contemplated? You can't see him with the senses, right? You can't, I mean, thought can think of him, but you can chitta vritti nirodha. The mind can contemplate the Atman. Those who know this become immortal. Okay, here's proto-yoga, my friends. What does Patanjali say? Atta yoga anushasanam, continuing the old teachings. Anu means continuing from where? Where is he continuing from? Right here. Here. Look, that is yoga, so people think. What is yoga? When the five perceptions are stilled, what does Patanjali call it? Pratyahara. Make a note of this. If you found that this is proto-yoga, meaning this is Patanjali saying he's only claiming to be continuing the teachings. So here we have an earlier expression of the teachings. The five senses are still, pratyahara, together with the mind, nirodha, dhyana, dharana. Not even reason bestirs itself, even viveka, right? That viveka kyatir, which gets rid of avidya. And Patanjali, how do you get rid of avidya? Viveka kyatir, even that is not even reason bestirs itself. No movement. Because if reason is active in the mind, what's consciousness going to be doing? It's going to be absorbed in reason. If it's absorbed in, that's very nice. I mean, no one's going to throw that away. No one's going to say no to that. But if it's absorbed in reason, what is it not absorbed in? Svarupa, its own nature. Anything outside of itself. If it's absorbed in anything outside of itself, then it's not absorbed in itself. Very simple. So not even reason bestirs itself. Stirs, vritti. Not even reason is vrittying in the mind. Then so look, Patanjali is quoting an older source. The Upanishads is quoting an older source. They call it the highest state. Who's the they? We don't have any record of any they before the Upanishads, but there were theys before the Upanishads. This is ancient knowledge. When we date things, we can only date when they first surface in the literary record. We don't know how old they are. And scholars sometimes make that mistake, a fallacy, that because something first surfaces in a text, that's when it comes to be. That's not true. That's when it first surfaces in the text. We don't know how old a lot of this stuff is. They call it the highest reason, the highest state. When senses are firmly reined in, pratyahara. That is yoga, so people think. Which people? Who people? They're quoting older people, even the Upanishads are anushasanam. If Patanjali's anushasanam, right, Atha yoga, the Upanishads themselves are anushasanam, are engaging in anushasanam, continuing ancient teachings. So who knows how old it all is? Krishna says in the Gita, I am the origin of both yogas, action and inaction. I spoke it in the beginning of creation. Krishna says in the Gita. You know what we'll do next time? Do you want to read the story of the first yogi? Would you like to read the story of the first yogi when we get a bit bored? All right. Brahma, the first yogi, called Hiranyagarbha. A tradition says he's the first yogi. But the teachings, who gives the teachings, then Krishna says in the Gita, that was me. The Shvetashvatara says it's Shiva. So both Shaivas and Vaishnavas claim that their Ishvara is the origin of yoga, and that's cool. Why not? That's called rasa. The Ishvaras have this rasa between them. When senses are firmly reined in, that is yoga, so people think. From distractions, a man is then free. For yoga is the coming into being and the ceasing to be. What comes into being? Pure awareness, svarupa. What ceases to be? Chitta vritti. Look at that beautiful way of putting it. For yoga is the coming into being and the ceasing to be. What comes into being? Svarupa. Consciousness doesn't come into being, it's eternal, but it comes into being in its svarupa finally, avasthanam. It's situated in its svarupa, its own nature. What ceases to be? Chitta vritti. Not by speech, not by the mind, not by sight can he be grasped. You can't see him, right? We've had so many verses like this. How else can he be perceived other than saying he is? What else can you say? Asti, he is. Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Tattvamasi, you are too. What else are you going to say? You say anything else, you're just throwing material sanskaras at it. You're just imposing prakritic sanskaras at it. You're going to say what bliss? What the hell does bliss mean to us? What do we know what bliss is? What do we think of bliss? What are we thinking of? Absence of suffering is what we think of. In fact, Sankhya says there is no bliss. They disagree with Vedanta. Remember Vedanta, that Brihadaranyaka, 10 to the power of 12 and 10 to the power of 18 with this, in the Taittiriya, the perfect king, Brahman is 10 to the power of 18, more blissful. Sankhya says that's all rhetorical. Really, what is that? What is that state? It's not Satchidananda, it's Sat Chit. And it's absence of suffering. And then to try to make that point, you start talking about bliss, 10 to the power of 12, 10 to the power of 18. So they disagree with. Certainly Advaita Vedanta says Ananda is a quality of the Atman. Sankhya doesn't. It has two qualities, only Sat and Chit. There is no, it's not a positive Ananda quality, it's an absence of all suffering. That's the Sankhya position. And Advaita differs. What can you do then? Just say he is. It is. But one who perceives him as he is, not just say it, but you're saying and affirming. But if you perceive him, look at the difference. You can be perceived. You can say that he is. You affirm he's real. But if one who perceives him, not just saying, it becomes clear. Then it's experience, not belief. It becomes clear that he's real. And how do you get there? Well, first thing, when they're all banished, the desires lurking in one's heart. This is tapas, first word of chapter 2. This is vairagya, right in the very definition of yoga. Chitta vritti nirodha. What is nirodha? It's yatna, dirghakala. Nirodha, it is vairagya and abhyasa. It's built into the very definition of yoga. Kriya yoga, built in, tapaha. Tapaha and vairagya, same thing. Tapaha is what you do, vairagya is the state of mind that comes from that. So when they're all banished, the desires lurking in the heart. All the desires, my friends, who are lurking in the heart. Then a mortal becomes immortal and attains Brahman in the world. Now, here in this world, not just some next world, some other possible, in this world, iha in Sanskrit, iha, here, now. This is meant to be experienceable. When they're knots, these are the desires, they're knots. Why are they knots? Because they tie us. You have a desire, you're tied to that thing now controls your mind. You desire a particular, whatever it is, a partner, a car, a particular, anything. Of course, we want good knots, aklishna knots. We want to tie our desires to seek the Atman, seek God. We want those knots. Those knots they're not bind us, they pull us out. They pull us out of samsara. Those are aklishta. But he's talking about the desires for, nonsense things. When the knots are all cut that bind one's heart on earth, our attachments, our cravings, our hopes, then a mortal becomes immortal, right? Refrain, then a mortal becomes immortal. But such is the teaching. And the teaching that everyone agrees on. They disagree in so many things, but nobody disagrees about this. Not Buddhists, not Jains, not right-handed tantrikas, not Vedantins, not the Sankhyans, not any of the schools, not Mahabharata, not the Puranas, nobody disagrees. Only left-handed tantra, and that's so misunderstood. So the book that no one disagrees that the desires lurking in our heart are knots that bind us, and that's samsara. Samsara is you have to come back for those desires, and you have to come back to take the reactions of other desires that you actually acted upon. Here's the reference to the nadis. So the Kundalini folks, there is no mention of Kundalini, but there is mention at least of the 101 veins of the heart. These are the nadis. So Kundalini folks are happy like this verse here, because here's a peg on which they can hang the Kundalini, the hatha physiology, with the chakras and the sushumna and all of that. So 101, the veins of the heart. One of them runs up to the crown of the head. So that would be the sushumna, obviously. It may not be mentioned, but we can allow that. Of course we can. Going up by it, he reaches the immortal So there is this reference to the hatha practice. There's at least this one reference. Not very much, but that's all you need. You just need, if you're a hatha, if you're a sort of hatha siddha, if you do a hatha siddha kundalini based practice, and you want to be orthodox, and the orthodox means you have to find your tradition somehow embedded in the Vedic corpus, the Upanishads. You have to find at least one verse, then that's all you need. So here it is. If you're a hatha person, there's your verse. And here the person the size of the thumb again always resides within the hearts of men. One should draw him out of the body with determination. Take this, draw it out of the Atman. We want to separate. We want to extract the Atman from its bondage in the world. Like a reed from a grass sheath, you pull a reed out from the sheath. One should know him as immortal and bright. One should know him as immortal and bright. Here's the end of the Kaṭha, my friends. And how does the Kaṭha present itself? Then, after Nachiketas received this body of knowledge and the entire set of yogic rules, all of that is considered to be yogic rules by this Upanishads. Even though the only actual methodological section is 2-3 verses here 2 verses. When the 5 perceptions are still, together with the mind, not even reason bestowed, so that's clearly recognizable Patanjalian type practice. When the senses are firmly reined in, that is yoga. The yogas are coming into being. So these 2 verses are the proto kind of forms of Patanjali. But the Kaṭha presents the whole thing as being yoga teaching. There we are. So, how are we doing, everybody? Okay. Are you tired? I'm tired. But we have 2 hours. Susan, how are you doing, Susan? You doing okay? That's 50-50. Susan Carter. Okay, so let's bring up another Upanishad. And we'll take questions in 20 minutes. All right, I think possibly anything in the chats. Today's Guru Nanak's birthday. So we'll go on then. So bring this up and Mundaka, and the Mundaka has something to do with the shaved head. So clearly, it's a reference to a kind of a renunciate who shaved your head. If you want to renounce, 2 things you can do: you shave your head, or you let it or dreadlocks. That's if you want to be a renunciate. So Mundaka has something to do with the shaved head. So right off the start, here, the title Mundaka has been the subject of some discussion. It literally means shaven or shaven-headed. And the basis of this, some have suggested blah, blah, blah. So, you can read academics, what they have to say about it, or you can read or you can read what the commentators have to say. So let's dive into the Mundaka. Let's see what I have highlighted. Prashna, Mundaka. Okay. Let's get the first couple of verses. That's all kind of embedded in this ancient Vedic stuff. So the knowledge of Brahman, which Brahma taught him, both the higher and the lower. Shankara probably likes that because he likes to think of ultimate reality is impersonal and the lower reality is conventional. But actually elsewhere in the Upanishads, it talks about the lower as being the supplements to Vedic knowledge. That would be grammar, the Shat Angas, just like the Ashtanga of yoga, the 8 limbs. So that 8 limbs comes from, it's piggybacking on the notion of limbs, of an earlier notion of limbs, which are the limbs of Vedic study. And there are only 6. They're called the Shat Angas, and they are astronomy, because you have to know when to do the Vedic sacrifice. Grammar, because you have to know the language. Metrics, because you have to chant it properly. Etymology, because you have to know the meaning of words. Ritual, you have to know how to perform the ritual. And there's another one, right? So the 6 limbs. And so in another Upanishad, it says the lower Brahman is the 6 limbs, and the higher is the Upanishads. That you can, right here it says that. Look, 2 types of knowledge. No, okay, Shaunaka. We like these little stories. They help the mind get sort of attracted. Shaunaka, a wealthy householder, once went up to Angiras, a famous Vedic rishi, in the prescribed manner, which means with firewood in hand, and with namaha, and you bring firewood because the teacher is still going to be a Brahman, probably still doing the Vedic sacrifices, but a yogi. So he goes up to Angiras in the prescribed manner. Samit panihi, it says, Samit panihi, with firewood in hand. And means that also that you want to get initiate. You want the sacred fire so that you're going to accept a guru. You give the firewood, and the guru does the ceremony and then initiates you. So that's the prescribed man. And he said, what is it, my lord, by knowing which a man comes to know this whole world? Now, this is what Angiras told him. 2 types of knowledge, right? We were just talking about it. A man should learn. Those who know Brahman tell us, the higher and the lower. The lower of the 2 consists of the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. So the Veda, knowledge of the Veda. Phonetics, how you recite it. Ritual, knowledge of the rituals. Grammar, because you have to know the language. Etymology, meaning of words. Metrics, the meter, and astronomy. So the one I was missing was the 4 Vedas. Whereas the higher, we know what the Upanishad is going to say. The very word Vedānta is the anta, the higher part of the Veda. The higher is that by which one grasps the imperishable. What cannot be seen, what cannot be grasped without color, without sight. We've had this so many times. These wonderful verses. Can't see it, can't grasp it with our instruments of action. Doesn't have any color, that's why you can't see it. Something to be seen has color. If something doesn't have color, you wouldn't know it was there. And in Sanskrit, the word for color and the word for form is the same thing. If you see something, that thing must have a form or a shape. So rupa, like svarupa, the word rupa by itself, sva is your own rupa, your own shape, your own nature, your own form. But rupa means form, and it also means color. I'm so sorry. I did sleep very well last night. I've got this suffering from a problem in my lower back. What cannot be seen? Cannot be grasped, without color, without sight or hearing, without hands or feet. What is eternal and all-pervading? Extremely minute, right? Before it was talking about the size of a thumb. Elsewhere, it's going to be like 10,000, the tip of the hair. This is more along the latter. Minute, extremely, present everywhere. Well, if it's minute, how can it be present everywhere? Because it's minute, but it's Shakti. It's the power of the Chitti Shakti can pervade everything. So the Atman itself can be minute, but its Shakti can pervade potentially the whole universe. Present everywhere. That is the immutable, which the wise fully perceive. The unchanging. As a spider spins out threads, then draws them into itself, as plants sprout out from the earth, as body and hair grows from a living man, so from the imperishable all things here spring. From Brahman comes his creation. Okay, we don't need to worry about this, but here's a little dig. You want to? This is the Upanishadic opinion of the Vedic ritualists. They cannot reject Vedic ritualism because they cannot reject the Vedas. The Vedas are sacred texts. They can't reject it, but they can say those who follow the rituals are following a lower, are in ignorance. Look how strong this language is. Look. Come, say the oblations, the ritual, the things you throw in. Come, say the oblations shining bright as they carry their offer on the sun's rays of light. You throw your stuff in you put your grains and your offerings into the fire, And the sun then carries them to the celestials. The oblations say, come, 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 we'll satisfy your desire. Give us oblations. Come, come, say the oblations, shining bright as they carry their offering on the sun's rays of light. They praising, telling him flattering things. This is yours, this Brahman's world, built by good deeds and rites well done. You can have anything you want, perform the Vedic rituals. You can have this world of Brahman. That's the ritualist world of Brahman is about enjoying the body. Right? Wait, we're not there yet. Surely they are floating unanchored, these 18 forms of the sacrifice. I don't know where the 18 comes from, but there's obviously many different kinds of sacrifices. So here he mentions 18. The rites within which are called inferior. The fools who hail that as the best return once more to old age and death. The fools engage in Vedic ritual. Why? Because they want some temporary things. Right, and the rites are flattering them. Come, 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 enjoy this, enjoy that. Do this oblation, do that sacrifice. Chant this mantra, chant that mantra, and you'll get this and you'll get that. They praise him, telling him flattering things. This is yours, this world. You can have anything you want. Built by good deeds. Be pious. Do your Vedic rituals. You can have everything you want. Material things. So, the fools who held that, Vedic ritualism as the best, return once more to old age and death, wallowing in ignorance. Remember, when they talk about ignorance, they talk about ignorance of the Atman. Wallowing in ignorance, but calling themselves wise. Oh, we're pundits, we know the Vedic hymns, we chant so perfectly on mantras. Thinking they are learned, the fools, again, go around hurting themselves badly. From a spiritual point of view, they're just perpetuating their rebirth. Like a group of blind men led by a man who is himself blind. That's a very old metaphor, my friends. We've all heard it, but it's very old. Here it is in the Upanishads. I don't know when the first usage of the blind leading the blind. I don't know when the first occurrence of that is in human literature, but here it is in the Mundaka BCE. I don't know if it's the first. Maybe someone could check that. Like the elephant, remember touching the elephant. Somebody wants to do a little research and let us know next week. But here it is, the blind following the blind. Wallowing in ignorance. All right, he said it twice. Time and again, the fools imagine. We've reached our aim, we did our rituals, we made it rain, we got progeny, we got the good things, and in our next birth we'll be in a celestial realm. The fools, because of their passion, their raga, desires, they do not understand those people who are given to rites, the ritualists. This is the mainstream religion of the day, my friends, Vedic ritualism. Therefore they fall, wretched and forlorn when their heavenly stay comes to a close. You can't stay in the celestial realm. You can get there with Vedic ritual, and yes, of course, quality of life is far higher. Can't stay there. So then you fall wretched and forlorn, all by yourself. Leave everything behind, wretched. Oh, my faith in Vedic ritualism now. I'm getting kicked out of the celestial realm because my karma's run out. Deeming sacrifices and gifts as the best, the imbecile, oh my God. Whoa, fools, what else? Blind, following the blind. Go tell us how you really feel. The imbeciles know nothing better. When they've enjoyed their good work atop the firmament in the celestial realm, they return again to this abject world. We're not going to read the rest because that's the wise. We'll leave that for next week. But I want to reinforce this point by looking at the Gita, my friends. This isn't just the Mundaka. This is the Upanishadic attitude towards ritualism. And what does that mean to us, ritualism? It means going to a Catholic church and lighting a candle in front of Padre Pio and saying, could you gimme, gimme, gimme? Or praying to the Virgin Mary, gimme, gimme, gimme. Or going to any religious place, gimme, gimme, gimme. This is gimme, gimme, gimme religion they're talking about. Just because the form it took in Vedic ritual was a little different, okay? You throw things in the fire, right? Catholics light, I come from a Catholic background, you light a candle. But the mentality is gimme, gimme, gimme. So the fools and the imbeciles are us, my friends, if that's what we call religion. That's what the Mundaka is saying. How about we think of it that way? And let's look what the Gita has to say, well, maybe in case we need a little reinforcement on that point. Let's see what we got here in chapter 2, if I get to this folder. All right, let's go to Sugarbucks version. What? Right. Peter chapter 1. There we are. And then we go down to chapter 2. Excuse me. And then we'll finish after this, don't worry. Probably all looking at your watches. And maybe Lakshmi's here, I don't know. Rotate view, clockwise. Okay, we're really quick, just 2 more verses, bear with us. It's chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way down here. Down. Okay, here, all right? So we had fools and imbeciles. I've got to, I believe, to make this happen, I have to do this. I have to stop share. And then I go back into the share. And then we look for the Gita up there. You should be able to see it now. Can you see the screen? Can you see it? Everybody? Hello?
Yes.
Right, look. Vedic religion. O path of the ignorant. This is Gita now. The ignorant who delight in the mere words of the Vedas. Contend that there's nothing more than this. Oh, rituals, you do this ritual, get that, do that ritual, get that. They speak flowery words, the Vedas do. Oh, you want a son or a daughter, do this ritual. You want rain, do that. Flowery words, what happens to flowers, my friends? They fade. And they perform rituals for enjoyment and power. The Vedic rituals are all about enjoyment and power, very materialistic. Yoga's going on in the margins. They simply lead to rebirth. We just read it in the Mundaka. Yeah, when their heavenly state comes to a close, they come back down. Such fools, oh my gosh, are full of desires and are intent on heaven, meaning celestial realm alone. Those whose hearts have been stolen by such speech, who are attached to enjoyment and power, fail to develop a determined intellect or even concentration of mind. This is a very strong critique of ritualistic, materialistic, desire-centric religiosity. Let's call it religiosity. Let's say religiosity is anything you do under the name of religion, ringing bells, throwing things in fire, lighting candles. If you're doing it for a material motive, fools is what the Gita says. Imbeciles is what the Mundaka says. Blind, imbeciles, ignorant. My goodness, they're not mincing words, are they? The subject matter of the Vedas relate to the 3 gunas, the older Vedas, not talking about Vedanta. Vedanta's critiquing this, not the Upanishads, the old Vedic hymns. They're about stuff. What stuff? Made of the 3 gunas. What's Atman? Beyond the 3 gunas. Upanishads want to take us beyond the 3 gunas. What the Vedas want to take us to. Fulfill desires within the 3 gunas. O Arjuna, transcend the gunas. Rise above duality. Fix yourself in goodness. Become free from striving, aparigraha, striving and possession. Right? So, and then one more, and then you'll see that, this is the same critique. That's it. I think we made the point. Oops, I went the wrong way. Sorry. We did that. And then go down one more. All right, so you get the point. Okay. Enough for the evening, my friends. I hope that was... So we read the Kaṭha, we read the whole thing. Not bad. And now in the Mundaka, and then we'll read the Shvetashvatara, and maybe a bit of the Isha, and we'll do the very short Om, the Mandukya. So we'll probably need, we'll have one more session, and then we'll see where we stand, and then see if we want to add another one. So we'll take questions now, if there are any. Lakshmi, are you there? Lakshmi Prabhu? No. So he went into the city today. He said he would most likely definitely be able to join us, but clearly he hasn't been able to. So we'll see if he's free next weekend. Any questions, my friend? So we have a lot of questions. Who had the hand up for Judith? I think you had your hand up before. You know?
Hi.
Hi, Judith.
So I did have my hand up. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So, when I was reading this in the introduction of the this book, this version for the Kaṭha Upanishad, they refer to the Upanishadic twist. They say that the first two chapters, that some editions divide the Kaṭha into two different sections, the first three chapters and then the second three chapters. And then he writes that the first two chapters containing the dialogue between Nachiketas and Yama provide the old context to the Upanishad, which seeks to provide an Upanishadic twist to the three wishes of Nachiketas. And I was wondering if you might go into some detail or about what that Upanishadic twist actually is.
Yeah, Judith, I don't have a clue. I have to read that. I have to read it and see. Let me see if I can quickly look at it now and see if that makes any sense right off the top of my head. But remember, that's an academic's opinion.
Sure.
So you'd have to decide whether, if the tradition doesn't say anything about twists, then that's something worth noting. But okay, let's have a look.
But may I?
Yeah.
As we read more and more, it seems to me that perhaps an explanation could be this leading us from the Vedic, as you say, the gimme, gimme, gimme religion, right, to the Upanishadic rejection of that.
Could be, yeah. But remember, that rejection comes at the very, very end. It's only like a dozen half a dozen verses. My version doesn't say anything about a twist. So I don't know where you're getting that from. It may be, yours may be a newer version. Mine is at least 20, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And there's probably been a few renditions of it. But my introduction doesn't actually say anything about a twist. So I can't, and nothing comes to my mind. So clearly between that, earlier edition, and what date is yours? Does it say in the front when your edition was published?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. 2008.
Okay.
It looks like that's the last revision.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't have any insights, and I, as far as I know, the tradition doesn't recognize any twists. So I'd be curious about what Oliver has in mind, and since I don't have that edition, I can't really speculate. But
okay.
yeah, see what you think. Come up, But the critique of the Vedic stuff is that it's not the whole of the second part. It's only the last six verses. It's just half a dozen verses. So that doesn't seem to be. You'd have to decide whether you feel that was very central enough to be, to be considered a whole second part.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pasha.
Thanks, Edwin. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I was just wondering, the criticism of the Upanishad towards the Vedic ritual, can that same criticism be directed towards modern puja? Because it seems that, at least chronologically, you've got these Vedic rituals, and then you've got the Upanishad emphasizing knowledge. But then in the modern Hinduism, you have such a strong emphasis on, it's this puja we have to do it today, this puja do it tomorrow. Yeah,
and of course, Bali has its own very unique kind of culture in that regard. It would depend on what the object of the puja is. If it's a gimme gimme puja, then yes. If it's pure bhakti to Bhagavan, that's a whole different, completely and utterly different thing. So if it's a mode of channeling one's devotional effect, bhakti, through these, offering the best ingredients one can find and offering them to the deity, no gimme gimme, but simply for the pleasure of Bhagavan, out of love and affection, then that would not be Vedic. That would be theistic Vedanta. That would be theistic Vedanta. That would be Ramanuja would be doing. Certainly, big Ramanuja, the biggest temples in South India come out of that line or that way of thinking. But if it's a gimme kind of puja, which a lot of puja is, Ganesh, for wealth, or Lakshmi, or even Saraswati for exam time, where everybody's worshiping Saraswati. If it's a gimme, yeah, then it would be a critique of that. It's the mindset.
So it's not the ritual itself, but the way we do it.
No, a lot of these enlightened beings are still performing their Vedic rituals, but they're not doing gimme. They're just doing it as dharma. Even Krishna says in the Gita, do your dharma without any attachment. We notice that a lot of the main Upanishadic wisdom teachers are Brahmins still doing their rites, but purely out of not with any gimme motive. It's just that is their dharma. That's the caste they were born into, and they just do it as for the perpetuation of the universe. They probably would be thinking of it that way. It's gimme. That's klishta, because it's based on avidya and body mind, and there's a me that is this very particular body mind, and this body mind has desires and aversions. The klishta ritual. But if it's aklishta, okay, I'm Atman. There's a Bhagavan, and what is my real asmi? My asmi is I'm a bhakta of Bhagavan. That's my asmi, dasosmi. Dasasmi, I'm the servant of God. My ragas are to please God. My dveshas are that which does not please God. That's all our klishta.
Okay.
Patanjali, check Patanjali Yoga Sutra 1.5. There's not enough discussion on that verse. The vrittis are klishta or aklishta.
Okay. And just a quick follow-up question, if I may. I do have a friend, also from Bali, who says, I don't really care about these rituals. I care more about my personal relationship with God. How sound is that
That's
argument?
perfectly sound, but look, if you have a personal relationship, don't you, let's say you have a beloved, a child or a beloved, don't you do little things and bring gifts, and you cook something special, and you do things that please your beloved? And it's not just an impersonal love. You sit on the sofa and just send loving vibes. You might, but more typically perhaps you do these little things, and that's what puja in its pure essence is. That you're offering flowers, the best flowers. You grow flowers just for your deities. You grow organic vegetables just to offer to your deities. This is high level. This is pure bhakti. So sure, you don't need to do any of that. Krishna says in the Gita, but even Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. You don't need to do high rituals, even just offer me water, or offer me a fruit or a flower, or even a leaf. But it does talk about offering, even putting the bar really low, just a bit water, but still it's personal. If you're a theist and you are a person interacting with another person, there are modalities to do that. And love is about serving and offering and giving whatever you think is beautiful, whatever you think is the choicest and best items in that you have access to. That's what you offer. That's bhakti. And why not do rituals? It's so cool. You follow if it's with a pure heart, and because otherwise it's arrogance. It's like, I don't need to follow some tradition. I'll make up my own thing. I make up my own bhakti. Well, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. Bhakti is about a pure heart. You can do your own thing. But why not be humble and say, okay, what do I know about how to worship God? Let me follow in the footsteps of traditions that have come down for centuries and centuries and centuries. Let me follow those time-worn paths of great beings greater than me, generation after generation. And let me, what's wrong with that? That's called tradition. And tradition may be gimme, but there are pure traditions. You just have to find the pure traditions that use rituals purely as a means of engaging the body and the minds in personal relationship with God. That's what rituals do. They engage our entire bodies and our minds and our resources and our flowers and our foods and we're engaging all of that in it. It is personal. It's using what we have and offering it. That's what bhakti is. Giving, some things you give up, but obviously you still do yamas and niyamas and yoga, but offer beautiful things. Look at the beautiful temples. in India and Bali and all the beauty, and actually anywhere in the world. The most stupendous monuments are, to great extent, many of them may be gimme modes of worshiping God, fine. But in principle, you can do all of that without gimme, just as an offering of pure love.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Okay. Siegfried. Good evening.
Hello, Edwin. Thank you.
Hello, Siegfried.
I'm really enjoying your talks again this round. I recall you mentioning that the Atman is a substance.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if,
according to theistic Vedanta, not according to Shankara.
Okay, because I was thinking also in Samkhya it's not a substance.
Well, it should be in Sankhya. It should be a substance and it has the quality of Chitti Shakti. But Shankara doesn't like the idea of substance and quality, because that creates a dualism. Even with it, he's not even going to say, he's going to say this: the Atman is Satchidananda. He's not going to say the Atman has Satchidananda as qualities, because he doesn't like any form of dualism, including a dualism between substance and quality. But Sankhya would say that. Where would they not say? Well, why do you say they wouldn't say that?
Oh, I'm just wondering because I associate, or at least I interpret, Prakriti and its evolutes as the realm of substance, and Purusha as everything but the realm of substance, so apart from substance. So it's the observer.
Prakriti, when it says Purusha is the opposite, you look at the definition of Prakriti, the manifest and the unmanifest. The unmanifest is, and it gives a list of things: the moving, the object, and then, but it doesn't say substance. So I would consider that it's a different kind of substance. It's not a Prakritic substance, but it is. Let's call a substance that which underlies properties or qualities, and the qualities of Sat and Chit in Sankhya, all qualities are supported by a substance, the Mahabhutas, right? The Tanmatras are supported and reside in, they produce, but they also reside in the Mahabhutas. So qualities reside in substances. I would think of the Atman in those ways. And Ramanuja does, and the Vaishnava Vedantins do. It's just that Shankara that doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Shanti. Kaise aap?
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
I have one quick question. In the Kaṭha Upanishads, there was this reference to the states of consciousness. Now, is there anything very similar that we can draw parallel with in Buddhism? Doesn't Tibetan Buddhism have something that when you sleep, I mean, the consciousness doesn't sleep, but even the dream, I mean, I know I'm very ignorant, but I just need to know if you can draw a parallel.
I don't know enough, Shanti, about Tibetan Buddhism. I know they have very elaborate treatises on sleep and all the different shades of consciousness. They have very sophisticated, meticulous analyses and schemas, but I don't know enough to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I just need a clarification because I was reading and it was, I was trying to draw.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the difference between the Sankhya and Vedanta and Buddhism is Buddhism is going to say the Atman is momentary and interdependent, can never be absorbed in its own nature because it's interdependent with its objects and it's momentary. So it lasts a fraction of it lasts a kshana, an infinitesimally small point of time, and then it's replaced by another moment of consciousness. So those are the differences. But when it comes to analyzing dream states, and they have great analyses of reincarnation what kind of actions end up in what kind of births. None of that. That can be. There's no reason for Vedanta to resist any of that. That's all good stuff. So any of their analyses, the difference lies in the nature of the Atman. There's going to be a big difference. But when it comes to analysis of dream or births and so many things, subtle realms, the Buddhists have done some amazing analysis, which I think could be of great interest. So, but I just don't know enough about it.
All right. Okay.
Any other questions? You're welcome. Shanti, any other questions?
Edwin, if I may again.
Yeah.
That's all right. Just a bit of a clarification on what my friend said. I just remembered she said she doesn't like to do the rituals because they're a bit complicated. There's certain ways of doing the offerings, there's certain days they have to do it, and it's just as a plethora of different rituals and pujas. So would you say the same thing to that particular statement?
No, I would say find a simple, because that all of those rituals, if they're variegated like that, there's a plethora of them like that, then clearly they're aimed at satisfying different desires. And therefore, just like the Vedic rituals, remember, even in the Upanishads, there's 18 forms. Remember, we just read it. So when you get that sort of thing, if you're trying to satisfy desires, then you have to follow very specific rites for this desire and another set of rites for this other desire. Yeah, that the Upanishads reject. But if you're doing bhakti, Krishna says, just offer me a leaf and flower and fruit. So I would advise your friend, give up they call it sakama bhakti and nishkama. Karma as in not K-R-A-R, but K-A-M-A. Karma as in the Kama Sutras. So they say one way of thinking of bhakti is either sakama or nishkama. Sakama means with desire. That's rejected by the nishkama, the pure people that say, no, you shouldn't ask. Even Krishna says in the Gita that, four kinds of people approach me. One is desire in distress, one needs wealth, one wants the Atman, looking for jnana, and one just is the man of wisdom who just knows me to be God and doesn't ask for anything. And he says, of those four, the man of wisdom is the most dear to me. Gita says that. So I would advise your friend, the rituals concerned with fulfilling a certain material, any kind of material need, those are not pure bhakti. Pure bhakti would be, a form of Bhagavan. So she'd have to decide what form she, captures her heart. And then just find the simple basic pujas associated with that form and just do that every day, the same thing. And that would involve, some simple incense, some fruits, a little offering, some food offering, some flowers, according to what's available at any time of year, and just stick with that. And that's pure puja. That can be very,
I think
yeah.
So that's exactly what she does. But I think what she was referring to were the more like on this particular day, we have to offer this sort of ritual with the coconut and egg and bananas.
Maybe temple priests do all of that. But if you're just trying to develop bhakti at home, I don't do any of that.
Okay.
I don't do. Maybe occasionally at Krishna's birthday, Janmashtami, you cook a special, like Janmashtami this year, I made Krishna raspberry burfi. How about that? Burfi that was a fusion dish, right? It's not really a classical Indian one, but it sounded great, and so you do. Sometimes you do something special, but puja on a regular basis for me anyway, it's just the regular offerings, and I do, I follow certain rituals, but they're standard in my lineage, and it's the same every day, and there's no gimme about it at all.
Okay.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
Comment to Pasha. I come from a traditional family which followed rituals, but Pasha, I followed it because I had to go to the temple, but that was like a stepping stone, or rather, when babies are little, you have a step stool to reach somewhere. But then with more readings, and it I'm getting clearer picture of how my practice should be modified and not in a narrow-minded view. I don't know if that helps you, but that's my personal journey in my path, which I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. Arati.
Yeah, just to on the follow-up question with Pasha's question, basically, we do everyday puja, not asking anything, but certain times of the, there is some kind of a issue or a suffering, you say, then you tend to ask for help, right? So is that like, that is kind of give me.
It is, but Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, he says, look, akarma, sarva karma, moksha karma, udharadit, tivrena bhakti yogena. Says whether you have no desires, which is ideal, or all desires, or so many desires, or whether you have a desire for mukti, he says just do bhakti yoga and let the bhakti will work. It'll purify the mind. And what does it mean to purify the mind? It means nothing other than to purify the desires. And eventually we get to a place where those desires will be less and less. And then our pujas will start coming from a place of affection and real bhakti. So just nothing wrong, of course not. It's better to approach Bhagavan for desire than not, because at least you're in contact with Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is still Bhagavan, and still the source of, and still any contact with Bhagavan is positive and purifying. But as long as one understands that, at some point, one needs to have just full trust and faith in Bhagavan. If you have full trust and faith in Bhagavan, why do you have to ask anything? Does Bhagavan not know? Is Bhagavan not aware of what we need and don't need? So when we get to that point of trust and faith, then it becomes silly to ask Bhagavan for anything. And then, but if we're not at that place, any kind of bhakti is beneficial.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, my friends. So I think we'll wrap it up for Lakshmi's not here. Lakshmi, last call. So he obviously couldn't make it. He must have been tied up. And we'll therefore bid you all good night and see.
Sylvia has a question.
See you next week. Who has a question? Sylvia. Sylvia. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Could you just clarify Krishna, Bhagavan, and Brahman? They're all different names for the same entity?
Yeah. When we use it depends on what aspect of that entity we want to be clear, we want to specify. So Brahman means the absolute truth. It can go anyway. Just like the English word, the absolute truth.
Yes.
So for some, that's God of the Bible. For some, that whatever. It just means the ultimate cause of all causes, the stop sign, the final causal truth, right? The highest truth in which any other truth depends. So Brahman means, actually it's defined in the Vedānta Sutra as Janmadhyasya Yataha, that from which creation emanates. So really Brahman is defined in Vedānta Sutra as the intelligence behind creation. That's the definition. Ikshater, it is intelligent. Right. So Ishvara is Ishvara is Brahman. But when we want to be a little bit clearer, that intelligence behind the creation is not just intelligence, but a personal intelligence. Ishvara is a personal being. Then we use the term Ishvara as a Purusha Vishesha. Even Patanjali says he is a being, a separate being, separate from the other beings, different. So when we want to talk about Brahman a little bit more specifically, we'll say Ishvara. When we want to be even more richer, when we want to refer to that Brahman who is Ishvara, who manifests forms and qualities and wonderful activities, we say Bhagavan, because Bhagavan then is that same Brahman who is Ishvara, but who also manifests in the world, and we say Bhagavan. And then we want to be even more specific that Brahman who is Ishvara, who is Bhagavan, and we want to refer to a very specific manifestation of Bhagavan, then we say Krishna or Shiva or Vishnu or Narayana or any of the other great Ishvara forms. They're all the same, but the nuances are slightly different. Maybe there's an increasing depth of personal presence as we go from Brahman to Ishvara to Bhagavan to say Krishna. The personal richness and personality increases. So by the time we get to Krishna, we have, the color and the form, and we know about the activities and the wonderful leelas and the pastimes. When we just talk about Brahman, we're just talking vaguely and just sort of conceptually about an intelligence behind creation.
What about the women like Saraswati and Lakshmi?
Same thing. So we have Brahman is Ishwari, Bhagavati, that's so Ishwari. So Ishvara, masculine Ishwari, then Bhagavan, feminine of that Bhagavati, and Krishna, we got Radha, Shiva Parvati. Don't worry, Sylvia, we've got the girls are covered. We got, we're good to, there is, which other theism has male, female? They're both there.
Thank you.
Gender is, Ishvara includes all aspects, including gender and everything. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Sylvia. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, stop.
Thank you.